Much love to the patrons, channel members, and subscribers for keeping this channel alive. More details on that at the end of the video. I think it'd be an understatement to say that Xenoblade Chronicles was a universally beloved game. Its approach to storytelling, the memorable cast of characters, its inventive open world, and its masterpiece of a soundtrack all led to a game that, quite frankly, no one was expecting on the Wii. Years later, we got an official sequel, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Though while we did have Xenoblade Chronicles X in between these games, that game is largely disconnected from the other two. When Xenoblade Chronicles 2 released, it was no secret that it ended up being a bit more divisive than its predecessor. I like to think that Xenoblade 2 is more than worthy of its title, but that's a topic for a different day. But with one unanimous masterpiece and one divisive and possibly misunderstood experience under their belts, this left people really unsure of how Xenoblade Chronicles 3 would actually go. Its reveals showed that it'd be releasing the same year as its announcement. That's so uncommon these days that some people got worried, and that was before the game ended up getting pushed forward by 2 whole months, which is even more rare these days. As of right now, I'm just over 30 hours into the game, and I've done every possible side quest that's able to be completed up to now, and honestly, I've just gotta say, Xenoblade 3 kinda rocks. Again, I'm only 30 hours in now, but I've been blown away by its story. The game seems to really focus on the development of its characters with the story. I know that sounds like an obvious thing to do, but you'd be surprised how often games seem to struggle with this. While playing, you can tell with every scenario, it screams how confident the writers were here. The game has great pacing too. It keeps up with what monumental stuff is happening in the actual narrative, but never fails to make time for showing the in-between moments that develop the characters outside of the action. I've said this for years, but a great story means nothing if the one experiencing it doesn't care about the cast. A mediocre cast can really soil a good narrative in my opinion. That's why I appreciate them not having us mainly growing closer with these characters through action-packed cutscenes. While due to their different country origins, they start off on the wrong foot for sure, but as time goes on, you can tell how much closer they've grown, how much they look out for each other. And in universe, it totally makes sense why this is happening. Being made enemies of both nations after having worked together, they have no choice but to rely on each other since they're all they have now. I'm glad they don't just immediately connect too, because that shows a lack of progression. Early in the story, as we saw in the game's trailers, they go through a life-changing event that allows specific pairs of them to fuse together into a single new form. During this, they kind of dive into each other's being, can witness their emotions and experience their feelings. At first, I was kind of worried this would grant them too much understanding of one another too quickly from a story standpoint and me as a player experiencing it. Like, you guys just tried to kill each other, but now you all are best friends? But thankfully, that wasn't the case. Only one pair starts off with this fusion, Noah and Mio, and it makes it harder for the rest to understand their willingness to work together since they're supposed to be sworn enemies. But it was enough to make them comply, at least for now, which in turn eventually leads to all of them having a desire to protect one another, leading to the rest following suit. Brilliant. I also want to say now that it wasn't until I was starting chapter 4 that I realized this game doesn't have any heart-to-hearts, an iconic staple of the franchise since the beginning. At first, when I noticed this, I was kind of baffled at their exclusion, but then I quickly understood that the reason they're not here is because they're not needed. In previous games, they were used as detours from the main story to further progress the relationships between the main cast without needing the progression of moment-to-moment drama of the story. I care a lot more about Morag and Zeke because seeing their heart-to-hearts made me care more about them personally. Seeing them talk and joke about things that don't matter much in the grand scheme of things made them feel more grounded and real, and I always loved the heart-to-hearts for that. But like I said before, in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, there's a lot more character moments worked into the main story with excellent pacing. The game never feels like I need those optional side moments from these characters because I'm constantly getting it from the main story. On a smaller scale alongside this, the camps do a great job showing how close the characters are getting without even needing any dialogue. Seeing them work out, read a book, doing each other's hair, all adds a bit more of a personal connection between them and to me. One of my biggest gripes with some newer JRPGs is that these characters never feel like actual friends, even when the game is telling me that they are. Because of it, it never feels realistic. I'm not saying I want them to be the best of friends and all over each other the whole game. I just want realistic dynamics, and I feel the end of chapter 2 solidifies this path for these characters. So at the end of chapter 2 when Uni and Taion and Lance and Senna all gain their Ouroboros forms too, and when Noah and Mio take out the Flame Clock, this whole segment, alongside the fight with Ethel, the fight with Console K, and all of it was masterclass and legit some of my favorite cutscenes in JRPGs today. That may sound like an exaggeration, but I promise you I'm being as genuine as I can be here. These moments had weight because we had been through a lot in this short time together, and getting payoff for the steps we've been taking towards felt incredible. Another decision you'd think would be bizarre was taking us into a battle, then back into a cutscene, and back and forth for what felt like 3 times. You'd think this would be pace breaking, but thanks to the game's seamless transitions from cutscene to gameplay, it really smoothed things over for me. Definitely a step forward from the previous games. And the music, man, the music makes these already extremely well directed and well acted moments even better than I could have ever hoped. I think something can be said about how even if you were to remove the music from these cutscenes, they'd still be incredible. I saw a post on Twitter that I completely agreed with, saying that this soundtrack sounds like the composer was told that these songs could be their last works, so they put their entire being into every single track. Not many JRPGs can flaunt that, but the fact that the music perfectly captures the scenario and shows off the confidence of those producing it just makes me melt in every possible way. I'm a huge advocate for music appreciation, man. It can tell stories in so many ways, elevate moments to levels thought not possible, and capture the essence of what a writer was trying to say and bring it to life. I feel music in games is crazy underappreciated. But it's not just the story, characters, and music I've been hooked to. There were numerous back-to-back hours where I just lost myself in an endless void of battles. The combat this time around is, in my opinion, the most engaging by far in the series. Working with a consistent party of 7 not only keeps the battles chaotic, but forces you to synergize with your party members in a way that the past games just didn't have you do, at least not to this extent. Xenoblade 2 had us with 9 different blades that each of the 3 drivers could switch between during battle, which in the end left us with 6 people on the battlefield at once. But in Xenoblade 3, having 7 people on the field has a completely different meaning because they're completely independent of one another. This game introduces a class system, all of which fall under one of 3 different categories: attackers, healers, and defenders. In a way, this is nothing new. The Xenoblade games have always broken things up this way, but having a class system on top of this changes up the gameplay completely for this game. Yeah, I may have Lance and Mio both as defenders, but the arts that come with each class alongside their own special skills and capabilities make them necessary to be played in different ways. Mio starts off as a Zephyr class character. Despite its appearance, it is a defender class. Its unique attribute is how it's built around having high evasion, so instead of taking a bunch of hits, it can draw aggro and work to straight up avoid most enemies. I don't find that some of these abilities are entirely new to the series, as Mio's Zephyr is reminiscent of Dunban from Xenoblade 1. However, Xenoblade 3 offers a much more dynamic experience thanks to these classes being able to be swapped around amongst party members. No one person has to be any one class. Noah starts the game as a sword fighter, but if you'd rather him be a healer, you can do that. I love how doing this switches the outfits of the characters. Some of them aren't always to my taste, but Monolith Soft has made sure to remedy this by bringing back the fashion system from Xenoblade 1 Definitive Edition, or at least in a way, by letting you make your appearance separate from that of your character. You don't have this for a bit, but in the grand scheme of this likely 80-hour game, you'll have it before wishing for it. Going back to battles again, due to story reasons, out of our 6 main characters, 3 of them are from the opposing enemy faction, and like I said before, it causes a lot of turmoil in the story. With this in mind, when we're finally able to play as the whole group, it's quick to notice how different they work from each other. So the Kevesi soldiers we start off with, Noah, Uni, and Lance, all have their classes work where Arch, the main abilities we use in combat, once they're used, they're placed on a cooldown timer, which can vary from art to art. However, with the Agnes soldiers, Mio, Senna, and Taion, the arts associated with their classes, once used, are recharged by your auto attacks. Every second or so, your character will automatically use a basic attack, and for Agnes, while it varies per art, this is how theirs are used in combat. I kinda have a preference for the Agnes classes, mainly because you get your arts recharged much faster. And since auto attacks happen frequently, and there's even ways to shorten the time between each one with the returning gem system from Xenoblade Chronicles 1, they make these kinetic fights feel even more so. I don't mind the KingdomAce classes, especially since within these 30 hours, all of the new ones you get are these kinds, so I've gotten used to them at this point. But where the actual gameplay loop of these classes lie is in your ability to balance your auto attacks and your actual uses of arts and their timings. A lot of KingdomAce classes have arts that can only maximize damage output by being on the associated side. Sword Fighter, for example, has its back attack that obviously should be used from behind. This adds more depth to things because it keeps you moving and paying attention to what's going on. Yes, the Agnes classes in a way ask the same things of you, but again, it's kind of why I prefer them overall, at least so far. Thinking about it now though, I feel the KingdomAce classes have a major disadvantage, so I think a nice balance option for them would have been to allow these specific classes to auto attack while moving, because you can't, unlike Xenoblade Chronicles 1. It would allow the gameplay to feel faster without making them overpowered since their arts don't recharge with them anyway. But moving on though, there's the main gimmick of the game, Interlinks. This mechanic is really freaking cool. I touched on it briefly earlier, but specific pairs of our 6 main cast can fuse together into a new being called an Ouroboros. In this new form, depending on which one you're playing, they all have different proficiencies, Noah and Mio being attack focused, Uni and Tyon being healing focused, and Lance and Senna being defender focused. Though this gets more complex later on and there's much more to it, in these forms we're essentially invincible. You can't actually die or lose HP during this transformation. Your main concerns are status effects like topple and your own heat gauge that constantly fills up over time. When it's full, you'll be forced out of the form and have to deal with the cooldown. I try to cancel the interlink before that happens, but this mechanic can really turn the tide of a fight, primarily because there's no cooldown on the arts in this form. So for example, if you can't get your healers to use their healing arts when you want, maybe they're recharging, using Uni and Tyon's interlink and popping off its heals that way can really save you in a pinch. There's been numerous times where I can heal back to back like that, so it really helps. That's just one way interlinks can be really helpful though. There's so many scenarios where they can be even more so. Another really cool mechanic they added for this game, which in all honesty is a long time coming, but it's swapping between party members mid-fight. In past games you can only swap who's being controlled through the menu outside of battle, but now it's as simple as holding ZL in one of the bumpers. It's not perfect as scrolling between them to get to who you want can be a little annoying in the heat of battle, but it's still a crazy appreciated addition to an already great combat system. What I love about it too is that despite loving the game I'm about to mention, it doesn't do the Genshin Impact thing where it swaps the character and the placement of them. That makes sense for Genshin though, because despite having party members, only one person is fighting at a time, so swapping them into the same place as the previous character is the only thing that makes sense. But because in Xenoblade 3 you have 7 people fighting in real time, whoever you switch to, you'll be switched to wherever they were standing as you switch to them, and not them being teleported into the spot you were previously standing. This also helps because I find the AI to be the best it's been in this series, and they all pretty frequently execute combos if available. So if the enemy hasn't been inflicted with break yet and we have a flash fencer in the party, it's pretty common for them to be rotating to the side of the enemy so they can inflict the status. And even if they haven't done it yet, like if the art hasn't recharged yet for example, and I have no idea if they'll do it as soon as it's done, I can just swap to them and execute it myself. The timing can be kind of precise, but managing to inflict break, then switching to the next character, then toppling the enemy, and then switching into daze is so satisfying. This is pretty rare though, because I don't know if it's just me, but more often than not, as soon as one status effect is inflicted, they follow into the next ones really fast. So I don't often even need to do it myself. This is the first Xenoblade game where I feel pretty cozy using a character that doesn't have any of the primary combo afflictions equipped, because I know the AI handles doing these well enough thanks to the sheer number of party members. Also, if they just happen to not be doing it for some reason, or I just want to be more specific, I can always use the tactics menu with ZL to get them to prioritize executing them. It feels like when it comes to combat, they really thought long and hard about what made 1, X, and 2 work, and how they can expand upon it. One of those things they greatly expanded on was chain attacks. I kind of feel like how they executed this could have been better, purely because even as someone who's played the previous games, I had no freaking clue what was going on in these new ones, so I couldn't imagine how someone who made this their first Xenoblade must have felt going into these. Even now, I'm not 100% sure on how they work, but basically when starting it, you'll be given a choice of 3 chain orders, all with different completion bonuses. Afterwards, you'll be given characters with arts to choose from, and using them grants various amounts of TP. You can maximize the amount you get by using one that has a similar role as a chain order. Like for example, if I started with using Noah's chain order, which is attacker based, I'll get even more TP by using one of my attacker's arts first. Not only do attackers getting the first hit always give you bonus points, but because it's the same type as the chain order gives you even more. You need 100% TP to complete the order, but more often than not, you'll go over that threshold, so try to go over it as much as possible for greater results. If you end a chain order with a defender, it guarantees you'll reactivate the character who will grant you the most TP for the next turn. And don't even get me started on when Ouroboros get added into the mix. There's so much more to it all, but I think this should show how much work into not just making it complex, but satisfying to learn and pull off. Not to mention, again, having a banging theme that fills me with so much hype and power. I'm telling you, man, my favorite kind of music in JRPGs are ones that perfectly capture the setting and instill so much emotion in me it stirs me into thinking I'm powerful somehow. But moving on from chain attacks, another really cool aspect of the game is its heroes. So sometimes you'll come across a story important character who will have an individual quest associated with them. Sometimes it's not till after the story moment with them, and sometimes it's during. But regardless, after the quest is finished, the character most associated with the quest inherits the class. I've gotten 5 of these so far, and honestly, I think my favorite classes are among these heroes. Like I said before, they're all Kavesi classes, which kinda sucks, but the actual mechanics of the classes are so fun, I kinda don't care when I'm actually in the moment. I've been able to pull off some crazy stuff with them too. There's something funny about having guns in a JRPG. Maybe it's because the genre has become kind of oversaturated with swords and shields, so breaking out dual guns with the full metal class just gives you another type of hype. Though I will admit, I might be an even bigger fan of Flash Fencer, despite what I just said about the swords. Mainly because, let's be real here, what's better than a sword? I know what. Freaking 2 swords, baby, let's go. Overall though, I think those 2 would be my favorite. I found it fun being able to inflict status effects that can show constant results like Flash Fencer's bleed. Full metal is fun because it requires a lot of running around. Sometimes to optimize damage output, you gotta be in the right positions on the field, and hitting those criticals and exploiting your positions feels cathartic. The animations for these classes also just kinda hit different. There's something there that just makes them feel as powerful as they are cool. If I had to pick 2 runner-up classes, I'd say Zephyr would be one because evasion takes are awesome. Seeing all those attack evaded pop-ups give me a different kind of pleasure. Also, I think this class might be the most fun to just watch. Maybe it's the slight screen shake when each auto attack hits, or how satisfying the audio design in this game is. Each hit feels like there's a lot of weight behind it, and because of this, it never gets old. This is something that I feel Full Metal doesn't do as well, since it's just a bunch of bullets, but the sheer spectacle of it all gives it a pass in my eyes, I think. The other runner-up is Yumsmith. It's got similar reasoning for being here as Flash Fencer. It's satisfying to pull off. It can even break enemies too. I know I said I'm fine with not having any combo arts on a class in this game, but if I can have it, I would prefer that. And if I do have one, I'd like it being a break art, purely because I like to be the one starting the combos, and it feels satisfying to have my party play off of me. But yeah, I know I still have a ton of heroes left to get, more classes left to try, and more mechanics left to explore. The world of Xenoblade 3 is honestly such a breath of fresh air. There's something about how low-key the soundtrack is in the overworld that adds an air of majesty to it all. The world is huge in this game, apparently 5 times bigger than Xenoblade 2's world. This baffles my mind, but honestly, it couldn't be more true. The world kinda engulfs you while you explore it. It's easy to get lost in its beauty. I found myself stopping plenty of times and just looking at everything around me. The environment towers over you, whether it's mountains or vegetation. I think this aspect of the game is its most impressive. While I always try to say the most important thing in open worlds isn't the open world itself, it's how the player is able to interact with it, but this game made me realize that sometimes that interaction isn't always about the stuff that's in it or where you can climb. Sometimes it's about just being able to lose yourself in a world you wish could be real. Whether you're fighting all these enemies or not, it lets you see the world in a new perspective. When you stop thinking of all these things as enemies, but as animals within this living, breathing world. It adds another angle of realism to this world, and it'd be impossible for me to feel like it's empty or that there's nothing to it. There have been many times where I wish I could explore our world the way I've explored the lands of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Not only is it a world I can appreciate the little things in, but it also has made me want to appreciate the little things in my own world. It may not all be fun and games, but if you pay attention and get a real good look at the world around you, I think you'll find a lot to love, just like how I fell in love with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. And if you want to support me further, you can follow me on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. And hey, you'll have a say in what videos you want to see next, and early access to the monthly podcast coming soon, where you can ask me anything you want. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is KingdomAce, and remember to play some games, master those chain attacks, and enjoy your day.